Cheaper than our producer's underage sister. Edgier than the stuff shown on late night television. Newer than Kim Kardashian's ex. Live from Orlando, it's Crazy Train Radio.
Hello, guys and gals. This is the infamous Katarina Leigh Waters, and you are listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Winter loves the fate of the meek. Velvet touch preys on the weak.
Hey folks, actually got a nice little special interview. It's for a nice Kickstarter project we heard about called Tinker. Now, we have actually one of the stars of Tinker, who you may know from another field of professional wrestling, but obviously we want to talk to her about Tinker first. And our guest on the line would be Katarina Waters. Katarina, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you?
Good. Where in the world are you now?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Oh boy. So like I was saying there, to introduce you, you got this new project that I heard about, Tinker. What can you tell us about Tinker?
Well, Tinker is steampunk, and it's steampunk, sort of an alternate reality. So it's set in the now time, but as if, you know, from Victorian times onward, things have turned out slightly different. So instead of going, you know, digital, it went more, you know, machinical. Is that a word? I don't think so. But like, instead of going, you know, into the digital age, it was more, you know, back to clockworks and steam, you know, as the name steampunk suggests. So it's sort of neo-Victorian with a twist. And I was lucky enough to be cast in it, and now we're doing the Kickstarter campaign and hoping that we can raise the money to actually produce it the way we want to. Or I say we, but I'm really just, you know, acting in it. But it's a really, really cool project, so I'm trying to put my weight behind it to raise a little bit of awareness, and hopefully people will see it and see how cool it is and help make it happen.
Well, obviously, as you said, it's based in the 19th century, alternate history, but the cool part I found that it's actually based in the San Francisco area. Now, for webisodes in my reading as well, that for the first season that they are trying to raise the money for and produce, they are going to be doing 14 episodes, or in this case, webisodes. And with the money that they are trying to raise $20,000, folks, which I know money's tough in some parts of the country and world, but I know this can be done. They are looking to start producing in mid-September of 13 here and have webisodes go live by the end of the winter. My next question for you would be, what is the role you'll be playing in this Tinker?
Actually, I have two roles. So I'm playing the bouncer, the door gal, at the Devil's Paw Tavern, which is the local, as you can hear, you know, as you can tell, the tavern, the German inventor's wife. So I'm also playing, you know, the German, and she's crazy, so she's a little bit off too, which is good. It's always nice to play off characters.
Time out. I think we lost you with a bad cell signal, so let's go with that question again. Sorry for the interruption, folks, but Katarina, now that we got you back on the line again, what's the roles you are playing?
Okay, so I'm playing, once I'm playing the door girl, the bouncer at the Devil's Paw Tavern, which, as you can tell from the name, is the locale, the pub where, you know, the watering hole, as it were, for the series. And then I'm also playing the German inventor's wife, and she's crazy, luckily, because it's always cool to play a little, you know, offbeat sort of crazy character. So I get to stretch my acting muscles a little, as it were, playing two separate characters, and it should be a lot of fun.
Well, who contacted you for this particular part?
Well, I saw it advertised,
Part,
and so I submitted myself actually to audition, and I went for an audition, and I got the part. So, yeah, that's how it was, because I heard about it, and I thought it sounded so cool, and just the whole steampunk thing is just, I don't know if the listeners are familiar with it, but if you just type into Google steampunk, it's like a specific, it's almost like a counterculture sort of underground movement. There's a lot of steampunk actually out there, and it's just a really cool concept, and if you look it up on Google, you find thousands of images of different types of it. And I just thought it would be super cool to be involved in something like that. And so, I was lucky enough to be cast.
Well, obviously, as you said at the beginning here, when we asked, where in the world are you now? Since you've been in L.A., have you been studying acting more and more?
Yes, I have. I mean, I've actually always really done acting, since I was little. And I did film and drama at university. That was before I even got into wrestling. That I was doing a bunch of acting. I did some plays in London when I lived in London. And so that was sort of my first career choice almost, as it were. And then I got into wrestling, and that sort of took over. But I'm almost back into acting now, and I have been studying out here. I've had some, I've been in classes to keep myself fresh and to refresh and to get better, obviously, at what I do. That's always the end goal, is to get as good as you can be. So I've been doing that. And also I've done quite a few different, like indie films, and I did a web series called Television, that I did 2 episodes for earlier this year, and then I'm going to be involved, fingers crossed, in another couple of episodes in a couple of months or so. So watch out for that.
Obviously you want to get to your wrestling background in a little bit, or in a few minutes here. However, I find it interesting that you mentioned about, and for those who don't know, Katarina is German-born, but studied at university in London. And you mentioned about doing some plays and different things while you're at university over in London there. What, from what you've done acting-wise over here in the States and what you were doing over in London, what's the biggest difference between the two that you've noticed?
Well, first of all, I actually studied at university, not in London, but it was York, which is North England. It's not a big deal. But then I moved to London, and then I did some plays there, if one wants to be a stickler for exactness. But
it's okay.
I don't know if there's that much of a difference. Obviously, there's much more stuff out here. There's just much more being made. There's also a lot more people, I would think, but there's a lot more opportunities here, I think, in general. I mean, LA, you can't go to a Starbucks without everybody. I mean, literally everybody on every table surrounding you to be talking about some kind of movie project. See, in London, it's not quite the same, So, I think mainly that really LA is sort of swept up in this. It's really what is almost the town. It lives, films, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, I think, it's like being on the indie scene, in wrestling. It's sort of the same, there's sort of different circles. The indie scene of acting, is a small circle where you meet the same people over and over again, and then you sort of move up, the prospective circles, hopefully, until you get, to the big bucks or whatever. But I don't know if it's that much different, except that really the LA is just a lot more of it.
Well, do you prefer doing the plays, like you were saying, over in England, or do you like doing film work better?
You know what? I love both. I'm actually very lucky in as I will be doing some theater work here in LA. I'm currently understudying for Danny and the Deep Blue Sea, which is a play that's playing out here in LA. So I'll be involved in that, I think, in 2 weekends time. And then also I'm going to be doing Macbeth in October on stage. So I'm very lucky as to I got involved in doing some theater here as well, because I just, film is awesome, and there's certain things that you can only do with film, and it's amazing, and it's great, and there's new scripts and all that. And then there's a certain thing about being on stage in front of people performing live, where you
That's what I was going to say.
And yeah, and also not just performing live, but where you you experience the journey from start to finish every time. Whereas you do a film, you do a short scene, and that might take a few hours. You do several takes of the same 2 minutes, and you're just in that one scene, and you do it again and again. And then the next day, you might do a scene from the film that plays way before the scene that you just did. The chronology is all, different. So you might jump from the beginning to the end and then back to the middle, whereas in a play you get to stand on stage and you just get to live the whole thing. You experience it, every time. So it's different.
And I would say that stage work, as far as an actor is concerned, or actress in your case, would be a lot like professional wrestling in terms of this, where during the show, no matter what avenue you're going down, you get that live reaction from whether you're doing a play or you're working in front of a wrestling crowd. Would you say that's true?
Yes, that's true. And also the other thing is if something goes wrong, you have to keep going, For example, if something happens that that is unplanned, or if you forget your lines, cut, and then you just do the scene again.
I think we
on
just
stage.
lost you there again.
Oh no! Am I back?
You're back. You were saying about if something goes wrong there.
Yes. Like for example, if you're on stage and you are doing a play. Ideally, it doesn't happen just every now and then, once in a blue moon or whatever, you might forget one of your lines. And it's I have done that. I forgot a line once for about 5 seconds, and it was the longest 5 seconds in the world. I stood there, my head was a complete blank, and I didn't know what to do or say. And then luckily for me, it came back, because sometimes obviously it doesn't. But when something goes wrong, you have to keep going. You can't stop. You can't look at the other actor and go, you can't look at the audience and say, I forgot, can we start that again? You have to keep going, and you have to cover it up, and you have to know the performance and your craft well enough that you can, save it, basically. And if you need to jump a few lines backwards or forwards to get it back under control, then you have to be able to do that, So that's the other part of it, which is, a lot of people find frightening, but at the same time it's sort of exhilarating because that's part of the rush,
Well, as far as your stage work, have you ever had an issue like that where you've forgotten did something but had to regroup and get back on track there?
Almost. I've never had, I don't think I've ever had one where something really went wrong, where I lost myself and had to completely change something. Obviously in wrestling, that's happened. Like a million.
Okay, well, let's jump into your wrestling a little bit here.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were best known in TNA as Winter and in the WWE as Katie Lee. Out of the two, was there any particular character you liked more?
Well, I think I liked Winter more just because, I sort of felt when I was there, because I had this long-running storyline throughout the whole time that I was there, pretty much, where it went from week to week to week. Every week I was doing something that progressed the same storyline, and it was character-based, and it was, we had backstage stuff and front stage stuff, etc. And it was just like a whole long development and a story arc So that was exciting for me. Plus, looking back, I like my look better in TNA, but I mean, that's just, that's me being a girl and being vain, but, I did really, I did really enjoy, in WWE I did a lot of really cool things, and I had a lot of different, spots where I had cool things to do with my character and that I enjoy and that I'm grateful for. It was just a lot more choppy. In WWE, it was like, okay, we'd start a new storyline, and then 2 weeks later it'd be something completely different, and then they would scratch that and, do a new feud with us. That would last a few weeks. Yeah, just a little bit, Whereas that is something that happens in wrestling a lot, but it just, in TNA, I had that long running storyline that I just really enjoyed that part of it.
Well, in WWE, one of the first things you ended up doing was with an old acquaintance of yours, Paul Burchill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were as far as story goes, they were kind of flirting around the storyline and gimmick of possible incest.
Yeah.
Did that kind of creep you out at all with what they were hinting at there?
No, I thought that was cool. I was disappointed that it wasn't a go in the end.
Okay. Yeah, because I know sometimes you bite the bullet and but, sometimes I know, depending on each their own as far as their personal preference and where they're willing to go.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not really easily offended, as such. And also, I find it a fascinating subject, and then it's been done enough in mainstream sort of entertainment. I mean, especially maybe not so much here, but in England, it was done on several soap operas. They had incest storylines with brother and sister, even they had an incest storyline on one of the really popular TV shows with a mother and a son. I guess they didn't know that they were mother and son or something. I mean, that's kind of creepy if you think about it. But it was done a lot because people are fascinated by it, and I didn't think that it was a problem, portraying that, especially, since we're not, obviously. And then the other thing was they weren't entirely sure. They were really going to go with either it was going to turn out that we were just stepbrother and stepsister, so it wouldn't have been blood related, or they wanted to do it that perhaps it was just hinted at, but it wasn't really consummated or something like that, And then it also made me think of, and then it made me think of The Crow, the movie The Crow, where they have that same flirtation with Top Dollar, Michael Winkett's character, the main bad guy, and the lady, Micah, I think her name is.
Something like that, yeah.
I guess
now that you mention that storyline in the movie.
Yeah, because they keep talking about their father, so they have the same father, but then she's always naked, and they're implying, that they do weird things with those people that they, that woman, the dead woman in their bed and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Which
even back in 1993 when they did that movie here, it was even further backing out of people's minds as far as the public image, like you're saying.
Right. So in that vein, I thought it could have ended up being a really cool storyline. So, but unfortunately, not to be.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you started your training in wrestling, I believe, in England as well.
Yes.
Well, again, I know I mentioned this with the acting as well, but was there a big difference in the English style that you noticed compared to coming and working for OVW, and then on to the other two companies?
Well, I think that for me specifically, I went to a company that was a little more new school, as they call it. I'm sure you're familiar with that term.
Yes.
As any wrestling fan would be, but perhaps if there's more casual listeners, they won't know exactly what it, but it was more the old traditional style, is very specific and is very technical based and all that. And the school that I went to was more, shall we say, influenced, I think, by the American style already. So it was more, I guess, what you would learn here at an independent wrestling school. OVW was, again, a different kettle of fish, as they say. since at OVW we learned more from Al Snow about specifically building matches and putting them together in a specific way.
And telling a specific story with that match.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Whereas before, when I went to wrestling school, it was more about learning moves, and then they would teach a certain thing about putting matches together. But in OVW, it was really mainly about, the story and the characters and showing how to, build a match, and to get the audience behind it and to get them involved as best.
Yeah, you're going to make them get involved. Okay, you're going to sit there and work the back or work the knee and, tell the story from that specific instance.
Yeah.
Now, when you ended up back in WWE, was it, or up to WWE, I should say, did it help because of your English training as far as wrestling to have somebody working with the women's division like a Fit Finley, who did a majority of his work over in England and Ireland and overseas?
I don't think that really made necessarily a difference, having the English training, as it were. Having Fit Finley, that was amazing because he is just, regardless of whether you're a woman or a guy, you can always learn something from somebody like that.
Yeah, but what I was getting at, because he understood the style that you came up in and learned from and had a lot of respect.
But again, he would have come more from the quote-unquote old school era. You know what I mean? Whereas I was learning more of, from people who were not copying, but sort of more influenced by the American style, I would say, rather than the old school. Because there is still, a lot of English wrestlers out there who do that world of sport, that style from the traditional English style, should we say. And people like Doug Williams, for example, he can transition very well between the two styles. And then, Paige at NXT, her mother, Mariah Knight, she's a wrestler in England, and she can do a lot of that. She mixes it up with the new school style, but she can do a lot of those, traditional English sequences and stuff like that. She's like a wealth of knowledge. And her daughter Paige, she's at NXT right now. But I didn't necessarily learn that style so much when I was there.
Okay. Well, obviously, we had seen that you were going to be doing some seminars and different things, so your hand is still in wrestling a little bit. Do you plan on keeping your hand in the business, or are you trying to fully transition out of it?
Well, I would say, I just see how it goes, Obviously, wrestling is a passion, and it's always, I didn't get into it on a fluke. Well, I got into it on a fluke, but it was something that I really, really wanted to do. I was really passionate about, and that I've always enjoyed a lot. I'm not necessarily, and now, I still enjoy every show I go to. I'm not necessarily looking to build my career further in wrestling, but I would like to remain and do the shows and have fun doing it. And I really, I enjoy passing on some of the knowledge that I was lucky enough to gain, especially from people like, Al Snow or Alex Shane or Mark Stone in England, people like that, who trained me and have had a lot of knowledge that I was lucky enough to use in my career. And now I'm getting to be able to pass some of it on, especially when it comes to, when I do the training seminars, I want to not just teach moves, I also want to concentrate on helping people develop characters and, how to put a match together, story-wise, rather than just show.
Well, obviously, got one more wrestling question. I was reading about after we said that you had said, yeah, I'll come on, was back when you were a young lad, not that you're not young now, but very young lad, you had read somewhere in an article about the Ultimate Warrior's mysterious origins, and you believed it to be true. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, what can you say? That was really what, I guess, hooked me to begin with. Because I read about that and I thought, oh my God, this is so fascinating, this larger than life. And then just the pictures, it was Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, and I just looked at them and I was like, they look like real life, like cartoon characters, almost, So big, like I'd never seen people like that in real life. So I was just so fascinated by the whole thing, and then coupled with nobody knows where he comes from or how he suddenly disappeared, and I just thought it was so cool.
Well, obviously, have you seen, because obviously Warrior now has his fans and doesn't have his fans. We'll put it that way. Have you seen the recent years of said Warrior?
Sorry, he has his fans and he doesn't have his fans?
He has his supporters, but then some think he's a little too political or different, his opinions on things because of the infamous YouTube videos and all the fun stuff. Have you seen any of this stuff currently?
I don't think I have, but now I'll go check them out, I think.
Oh, I'll make sure I send some over to you.
Yes, please.
Whether you agree or not, I think you'll be entertained at least.
Sounds good.
But obviously, again, we've had Katarina Waters on the line here to promote, and make sure through this interview we will have a link posted. It runs out August 30th for Tinker. They need to raise a total of $20,000. There's different incentives, folks. Go to their Kickstarter. Help them produce these 14 first season webisodes. Katarina, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.